Types of warranties. All right. 30-day money back guarantee, warranty, return the item if it is broken. But let's see what all these different warranties are. More just terms to be familiar with. Express warranties. These are explicit assurances or promises made by the seller to the buyer about the quality, condition, performance, or reliability of a product. These can arise from any affirmation of fact or promise, any description of the goods, or any sample or model shown. Doesn't have to be in some specific contract or statement. Statements of value or opinion generally do not create an express warranty unless the buyer specifically relies on them, and express warranties generally cannot be disclaimed by the seller. Next up, we've got the implied warranty of title. Suggests that the seller has proper title to the goods and the actual right to sell those goods to the buyer. This is important because maybe those goods are being held as collateral or they just don't own the goods to begin with. This warranty can only be disclaimed in certain circumstances or with specific language, such as a provision explicitly stating that the seller does not guarantee that they have the right to sell the goods. That's a little suspicious. I would stay away if that's the case. The common phrase, sold as is or with all faults, do not disclaim this warranty. Next up, we've got the implied warranty of merchantability. This ensures that goods sold by a merchant are fit for the ordinary purposes for which such goods are used. This warranty only applies when a sale is made by a merchant, and it can be disclaimed by using specific language, such as stating that the goods are sold as is or with all faults, or by explicitly mentioning merchantability in the disclaimer. And then lastly, the applied warranty of fitness for a particular purpose will apply when a buyer relies upon the seller's skill or judgment to select or furnish suitable goods for a particular purpose, and the seller knows of this reliance. That's important. This warranty can be disclaimed by stating the goods are sold as is or with all faults. More terms to just be familiar with. All right, we got some remedies here. If you have a breach of contract, if you are at odds with the other person in your contract, buyer or seller, now under the UCC, we've got these remedies when either the buyer or seller breaches the contract. Here, first off, we're going to start off with anticipatory repudiation. This occurs when one party indicates in advance they will not be able to perform their contractual obligations. Not good, but hey, at least you gave a little bit of a heads up. In response to anticipatory repudiation, the non-breaching party has several options. So those who are not saying they can't perform demand immediate performance. So first, you can just say, "Hey, do your job." If I hire someone to fix the toilet and they say I can't come today, I can say, "Hey, you need to come today." I can also cancel the contract and pursue any available remedies for the breach of contract. And just say, "All right, fine, I'll go find someone else." And they can also wait until the time of performance to sue. The non-breaching party can wait until the actual contractual performance date arrives and then sue the breaching party for non-performance. Obviously, we're probably not dealing with a situation here where someone's coming to fix your toilet. That sounds a little serious for that. But if we're dealing with a full remodeling of the house, takes months and months, that's a situation where this would likely apply. We've also got the right to demand assurance. If a party has reasonable grounds to believe that the other party may not perform their contractual obligations, they can demand assurance of performance. If the other party fails to provide adequate assurance, this can be treated as, we saw above, anticipatory repudiation. Got a few more here. Punitive damages. Now, as we've seen before, punitive damages generally not going to be the case. So this is punishing someone, go punitive, going after them, and this is past the point of just returning each party to how they were before the contract was entered into. This is punishing someone by penalties, fines, fees. The focus is on compensatory damages here, which are intended to put the non-breaching party in the same position they would have been in if the contract had been performed as agreed. So if I'm very much relying upon this toilet to get fixed today, and then the plumber doesn't come or they do a bad job, whatever losses I faced, that plumber is going to have to pay for. Then we've got the duty to mitigate. Both the buyer and the seller have a duty to mitigate their damages in case of a breach. This means that they must make a reasonable effort to minimize their losses resulting from the breach. So if I have a contractor fixing up my house and they just can't get the job done in time and they're not doing a good job, I can't run around and just cause more damages, and that would actually hurt my case if I am trying to make it so that they have more to pay up for. If the seller breaches the contract, the buyer has a duty to mitigate by attempting to purchase the goods from another source. And if the buyer breaches the contract, the seller has a duty to mitigate by attempting to sell the goods to another buyer. Not too bad, nothing crazy. Some remedies here if either party breaches the contract. Here are specific remedies for the seller when the buyer breaches the contract. we've got the right to cancel and sue for damages. Well, the seller can cancel the contract and then sue the buyer for damages resulting from the breach. We can also have the right to withhold delivery and stop goods in transit. The seller can withhold delivery of the goods and stop them in transit if the buyer breaches the contract. They say, we're not going to pay you for them. We have the right to resell and sue for damages. The seller can resell the goods and sue the buyer for the difference between the contract price and the resale price, plus any foreseeable incidental damages. We've also got the seller's right to full contract price. The seller can recover the full contract price if the goods were specifically manufactured for the buyer or were destroyed after the risk of loss passed to the buyer. Definitely very important. If I'm building a machine for Nike that specifically puts the swoosh on their shoes, and then they say we don't want it anymore, that may be a breach, because what am I going to do? I can't sell that to someone else. They're not going to be able to use that for legal purposes. Putting swooshes on other shoes, that's a breach of copyright there. And then liquidated damages, the seller can retain a down payment made by the buyer, but only the lesser of 20% of the contract price, or $500. Now, here are remedies when there's a seller breach of contract. Remedies for the buyer, we've got the right to reject non-conforming goods, and we have seen some of these before, so it's nice for a little recap as well. The buyer can reject goods that do not conform to the contract terms. If I ordered 50 mason jars and I get 50 ceramic mugs, yeah, that's not what I wanted, and I'm not going to have to accept those. The right to cancel or rescind for non-conforming goods. The buyer can cancel the contract or rescind the transaction if the goods are not conforming. We've also got the right to sue for damages. The buyer can sue the seller for damages resulting from the breach. If the buyer accepts the non-conforming goods, they can seek damages equal to the difference between the value of the goods expected and the value of the goods delivered. And if the goods are rejected or undelivered, the buyer can purchase goods elsewhere and sue the seller for the difference between the contract price and the price that they had to pay for the substitute goods. We've also got specific performance. The buyer can demand specific performance if the goods are unique, as we've seen. Specific performance dealing with that for sure. Replevin, this is not as commonly asked, but here it is. The buyer has the right to recover goods wrongfully in the hands of the seller. Rights on insolvency. If the buyer becomes insolvent, they may recover identified goods under circumstances. And then entrusting. If the owner entrusts goods to a merchant who sells them in the ordinary course of business, the buyer acquires good title to the goods. This rule does not apply, however, if the seller is not a merchant or if the goods are not sold in the ordinary course of business. And there, that'll have it. Let's wrap it up. We've got a few graphics, just want to walk through with you, and then we'll call it a day. Nice little recap here of all the different situations in which a contract would be void versus voidable. So I would definitely make sure, take a screenshot, revisit this, make sure you understand when a contract would be void versus voidable. And here's a nice little recap as well between common law versus the UCC. So a lot of this is everything we've seen. So feel free, take a look at this and use it to help memorize the differences. That'll do it for us. Let's call it a day and get to some multiple choice questions and sims. Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.Examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit CPA.Examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.